What a unique year for movies 2023 was.
Yeah, I think this is definitely, I know we say this every year, but it feels like the movies are back. Like,
It really does. It reminds me of almost like 2019, the year of like Parasite, Irishman. Kind of gave me faith that like we have like a resurgence of cinema again.
I say we started off strong. Ashton, what's your number 10 movie of the year
Boom.
in 30 seconds or less?
Bam. Number 10. This one is kind of, starting off my list with a surprise now that I've kind of looked over my notes. I'm going to start off with just actually a film that makes the top 10, but ultimately was underwhelming for me, and that is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning.
Interesting.
What I love about the Mission Impossible franchise is that when I think about them, they always get me excited for the summer season. Mm-hmm. I know with Mission Impossible, I'm in for a popcorn feast.
Yeah.
I'm going to be glued to the screen. I can anticipate spectacle. But this one, very derivative, honestly, just kind of forgettable when I really think about it. I remember leaving the theater just going like, I witnessed Mission Impossible, but it didn't really resonate with me. And keeping in mind that this is a part 1-2, it's almost like predicated on the fact that, wait, there's more. So even going into it, I was just like, wow, they're not really giving us the whole meal yet. And that's what this film felt like. It just felt like a little bit of an hors d'oeuvre that you went, that was pretty good, but where's the meal? Forgettable villain, the set pieces, they just didn't really feel original. I think its main set piece takes place on a train, but ultimately, if anyone out there has played any of the Uncharted games, Uncharted 2 Among Thieves, it's like they lifted the train sequence directly from there. I remember even just kind of rolling my eyes being like, oh my god, like, yeah, okay, Christopher McQuarrie loves the Uncharted 2. This is his moment to show that the music is bumping, cinematography's on point, and overall it makes my top 10 because it is fun, and I love seeing Tom Cruise just giving it his all as Ethan Hunt.
Well, for the beginning of my top 10, some people may be mad it's not higher because this is probably one of the biggest surprises of 2023, but that's Godzilla -1.
There you go.
Amazing main characters. That was probably the biggest surprise, is almost no Godzilla movie has ever had quite a strong set of characters that are not monsters.
Almost like the movie's a little too reliant on Godzilla itself, that it doesn't really beefing up its players, its human players.
It's almost made a paradox in the sense that the monsters have been so good and the humans have been so bad that people have kept asking for more monsters, especially out of the legendary Warner Brothers movies recently. But this one has made people realize that they were almost wrong, that, wait, we do need these characters almost more. We almost need the monsters less to emphasize them more. But those characters need to be phenomenal, and this one delivered on that. CGI, amazing, really felt like I was there, and the World War II setting and the themes really came together in a beautiful way, so that makes my top 10. What about your 9?
My number 9, John Wick number 4. It's fun. Going into it, I was like, I always love a comic book movie that kind of goes above the PG-13 threshold into rated R. I found it engaging, of course. When you go to a John Wick film, you're not necessarily going to like anticipate this like really rich, deep character study. I found it as stilted, and there wasn't as too many wow moments like from the other franchise. Like when I think about like John Wick, my mind goes back to like John Wick number 3, where like that beginning 15 minutes where he's just like evading all those hitmen. I was just like, damn, like
that was such a way to introduce a movie.
Right in that knife fight sequence, I was like, Jesus, like I didn't even know the franchise could get topped. And watching 4, there was a sequence with the Dragon's Breath shotgun that made me go, okay, damn,
we're here,
we're back. So that's why I think it makes it pushes beyond the envelope what Mission Impossible I think failed to do in just providing that real fun popcorn engaging action. So it beats out Mission Impossible, but there's some better movies, so that's why it's my number 9.
And my number 9 is actually the same, John Wick 4, so I don't want to reiterate too much, but yeah, I feel like this is not the best of the franchise. However, if you're a John Wick fan, you know exactly what you're getting out of it. And a few things I want to talk about that did not get mentioned, which is sound design. That first second in the movie, you are hit immediately with some of the coolest sound design I've ever seen in a movie theater. Just literally heart-pumping sound design. And obviously some of those sequences were just amazing, but also some of the sequences, they almost tried a little too much.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the stair sequences, and if you
oh my goodness,
if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it stays in my 9 because it just doesn't quite top some of the others. but I do think it stands apart from the others well enough to still be considered top 10.
Perfect.
All right, hit us with your number 8, Ashton.
My number 8, though, this is one that, is interestingly enough, I had a lot of fun with. It's Saw 10. Saw X, I haven't really watched a lot of the Saw franchise, but what I loved about Saw X was, even going into it, I wasn't really aware that it was a prequel sequel. This film gave us an interesting backstory in one of horror history's most iconic villains, Jigsaw. I really love the fact that we got an enriching backstory. We got to humanize Jigsaw, which what the film cleverly does is, like, yes, it's a horror film, but then it kind of like tricks you into kind of making this melodramatic character study that reminded me at moments of Logan.
Interesting.
I felt that the film balanced its tone in a very interesting way that was just unlike anything I've really ever experienced before regarding like a historic horror franchise.
Yeah.
It's almost as if like Chucky's like a cowboy and he's actually like soliloquying. But to like see Jigsaw actually like sitting at a coffee shop and having these very human moments before, like doing what we all like to see Jigsaw do, which is put these like really bad people in these like crazy traps. It was interesting to see just that unique perspective of Jigsaw being fleshed out. And that's why, yeah.
How were the kills?
And the kills, actually, yeah. Like, I was with my buddy at the time, and he's kind of big into the franchise, and he was just like, dude, these kills went off. And they did, even from me not knowing much of those kills. They're very unique, pretty, cringe-inducing, which, like, when you go to see a Saw movie, you want to kind of go, ooh, damn.
Dang, like, kind of like squirming in your theater seat, you know, making you uncomfortable, you know what you're getting.
Exactly. Like, as Hitchcock says, like, if you go to a scary movie, you want to be scared. You want that girl to, like, go up the creepy staircase. We want that moments of tension. And I felt this film really did have moments of that, like, torque tension, but also that gratuitous gore that, didn't hold back when you think about the Saw franchise. So that's why awesome. That makes my number 8.
So my number 8 is one of 2 superhero movies on my list. My number 8 is Guardians 3. And from James Gunn, this was an absolute blast. I really felt like he made an amazing send-off for this franchise that he kind of built with his own 2 hands, I'm going to say it. And to show how much he loves this franchise while still also saying it's time for me to move on, by almost showing that through the characters at the same time, having these characters move on from certain things that have been building out through these movies or the entire cinematic universe that they've been a part of. And music's great, action's great.
I was just going to ask you, how's the soundtrack?
It's been really interesting to see how he goes from 70s to 80s, and then he does 90s for this movie, which has led to some amazing music choices. And then choosing the song that they did at the end, he chose Dog Days for the last song, which is a 2000s movie. Yeah. 2000 song, sorry. It's a 2000 song, which almost teases you, uses the soundtrack as a thematic element in a sense of showing these characters are moving on to the next chapter. They're not in the 90s soundtrack anymore. They're moving on to the 2000s, which is almost like showing they're going on to the next chapter, which just shows me kind of the innovation he has when it comes to music, especially in his movies. Anyways, that's part of why it's part of number 8.
I love James Gunn as a filmmaker even before his superhero like immersion, like even in movies like Slither or films like Super. He always just has an understanding of storytelling, and like you just were able to lift that subtext. It's great to see like filmmakers that really understand that subtext and how that adds to the whole movie going experience. So excellent choice. So speaking of though subtext, my number 7's an interesting one though, because I went ahead with Gareth Edwards as the creator actually. Now this is a film that is more, and this is okay for me because sometimes when I go to a movie, I want to treat it maybe sometimes even like a rock concert. If it feels like a fun, beautiful something that just like really stimulates my senses, that's still a good time for me a little bit. And The Creator by Gareth Edwards, it's definitely an exercise in style over substance, but I really found myself just really being inspired by its aesthetic, some of its actual visual choices, by presenting this future world in this like widescreen, anamorphic, almost like 70s like cinema film grain vibe. I just love that kind of unique contrast with the future and the dated meshing into this kind of almost Neil Blomkamp story. But yeah, I thought it was just very unique presentation of the future. I thought even for its bare bones story, I grew up kind of reading just like Image Comics. And I love kind of just like that journey of like a 6-issue arc in a volume. And this movie just kind of reminded me of that, and I had fun with it. Yes, it was predictable, but once you start to kind of take the critique away from it and just kind of enjoy something that's, a little more like, it's original, but it was original in its presentation, and I don't know, it just really struck a nerve with me in a good way visually, and I kept thinking about it even beyond, other films that I've seen. So that's why the creator stayed in my mind even longer than films like John Wick or Mission Impossible. That's why it's in my number 7. So what about you?
My number 7, and I'll make this pretty quick, but even though I think it honestly could have its own video, is Greta Gerwig's Barbie. And I just wanted to give some shout outs, which is to the people who did the production design. Absolutely fantastic, Oscar nomination worthy. And Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach created an amazing script that I'm so glad they were able to make, even under kind of, I can assume there was some scrutiny from both Mattel and Warner Brothers, but the fact that they were able to still make what seems like what they wanted to make the way they wanted to make it was truly impressive. And I'm glad they got to make it because it was truly inspiring, both as a filmmaker, but just as a human being. And I'm glad other people got to see it and got the same reaction I did. That's why it's my number 7.
So moving on to my number 6, this is a film that kind of just snuck up on me, actually. My dad actually recommended me to watch this. This is a film called Sound of Freedom. It's a film that deals with the issue of human trafficking, especially with children in foreign countries. And it isolates this guy, played by Jim Caviezel, who was an actual agent, for Homeland Security, who deals in that. And not only is it a tribute to his line of work, but it's a very powerful film that allows us to just really consider like the evils that do exist in front of us or in the periphery that we're kind of a lot of times ignorant to. It was a film that actually challenged me to really look closer and actually think bigger than myself. I thought it handled the issue of sex trafficking and human trafficking tastefully in its direction. It wasn't explicit, it wasn't gratuitous, but it was powerful in its imagery and the way that it just presented just like the brutality and just like the murkiness of this like very sinister reality. I found that the film was also just action. It had a lot of emotion, and it really just struck a lot of pathos in me as I left. So Sound of Freedom would be my number 6.
So my number 6 actually kind of got in there last minute because I saw it Christmas week. It was one I saw on Christmas Day. I did a 4-day movie marathon Christmas Day. Saw some pretty good movies.
Crazy, man.
Yeah, I saw Wonka. That was actually surprisingly good. I saw The Boy and the Heron for a second time. That was also very good. Didn't make the top 10. Shout out to Miyazaki, though. I saw Ferrari. Pretty disappointed by that one, to be honest. Sorry, Ferrari fans. But the fourth one...
Michael Mann should stick to crime.
The fourth one was one that I did not want to watch originally, but I just kind of saw I had time for in my slot, and so I ended up watching it. And that's The Iron Claw. And I'm not a wrestling fan. I don't care about wrestling. I don't know anything about how it works. I don't know anything about the Von Erichs, which this film is about. But the way this movie was able to both thrill me with its wrestling sequences, make me feel for a family I didn't know anything about, and also weave together a consistent theme throughout this real-life story, and also make it incredibly heart-touching while actually making it less sad than the actual story is one of the most mind-blowing things I've seen out of a movie, especially biopic movies like this one, out of the past few years. And I just wanted to give it a shout out because it's such a great example of a biopic movie that weaves a theme down the middle consistently.
Right.
Makes you feel something. Doesn't necessarily change it to make it more of a soapy story than it actually is. There's so many movies where they add fake story bits to just like beef up the sadness.
Right.
This movie actually makes it less sad than the original real life story is. And it still hits you hard.
Yeah.
And it was amazing, well lit, well shot. Zac Efron, Jeremy White, amazing jobs. Everyone in the family did great.
Awesome.
And highly recommend it.
Even from the trailer, it kind of just reminds me of that golden age of like early A24, just very character-driven stories. There's like a film with like Ben Mendelsohn and I think Ryan Reynolds called like Mississippi Something, where they're two gamblers that are traveling. But just from like, like, it just looks like a film with a lot of heart, and I'll definitely have to check that out.
Absolutely.
Dude. Boom. Okay, we're now at the top 5.
The big 5.
The biggest 5 of 2023. And I think, funny enough though, this might shock some people, but at my top 5, it made it. The OG, the man behind such hits as Goodfellas, Raging Bull, Casino, he's here, but he's at 5. It's Killers of the Flower Moon for me. That's my top. That's my 5. That's at my number 5.
Interesting.
Here.
Delve deeper. But not too deep, though. We're trying to keep under 20 minutes here.
Exactly. I'm not just putting Scorsese on because it's like, oh, as a film guy, I have to have reverence for Scorsese. Scorsese clearly is a master at what he does.
Absolutely.
The film is 3 hours long, but through the editing, through the pace, through the performances, through how Scorsese just understands what makes compelling cinema, the movie flies by. It keeps you, it literally holds you by the hand, and you can't help but just fall into the world that Scorsese presents with these characters. The performances, Leo, Lily Gladstone, even De Niro, they all bring it. It's very just really nuanced performances. Like I could feel like a lot of the pain, It's like one thing that I think, that this film really does a very good job is just kind of like showing, what happened to the Native American culture of that time, that turn of the century. And it doesn't really like shy away from just showing how manipulated and used that culture was by, the encroaching, civilization of westward expansion and all that noise. Cinematography is beautiful. The score is great. And I think Scorsese's just really in having fun at this age, at this late in the game. I really enjoyed some of his creative swings, such as, the presentation of the ending. I won't spoil anything, but
absolutely.
I found this is Scorsese just highlighting a historical moment, but enjoying it as well with his own creative sensibility. So that's my top 5.
And for my number 5 pick, it is also Killers of the Flower Moon. I think it could be higher if I wanted it to, but I stuck it here at number 5 because it is just a damn good movie. It is Scorsese still killing it.
You can't deny it. Even when you feel yourself feeling a lull in it, you're like, it's like Scorsese just goes, hey, stay with me.
And that's my thing. I never felt a lull with this. I was like,
exactly.
There might have been a few moments where I was like, oh, what is this wrapping up? More of out of curiosity, more of than like, oh, what's the time? I was more of enthralled watching all of this play out. And a few things I want to mention is specifically what has been Scorsese's seemingly interest in telling stories that seem to leave more of an impact.
True.
And almost mean more to people, to speak more to people, and warn people about certain things. He did so with The Irishman, and he dives even deeper to that with Killers of the Flower Moon. And I think it's a break from what he's been doing throughout his career, which has just been making interesting, but ultimately mostly entertaining movies. It seems like the purpose behind his movies nowadays is to talk to us as the audience.
And there's a common denominator of crime, clearly, in Scorsese's film. But what I like about Scorsese in this moment is, like, when I think about Scorsese and Kubrick, is Kubrick was a director that just wanted to always just go into different genres, science fiction, horror, historical biopics. Scorsese, though, likes to move genre in terms of history and the way he examines a certain different subculture of crime, such as crime and maybe like, gangsters and like, the East Side, or even in like the gangs in New York, even going all the way back historically. But to see now Scorsese taking something kind of more of like a Midwestern Osage Indian crime story and putting his spin on it, it was very interesting to just see this new geography getting the Scorsese treatment. And that's ultimately, I think, what kind of compelled me even into this story even more, is just getting that new cultural, seeing that crime in this different kind of landscape.
We talked about our lists a few weeks ago.
Right.
And I didn't change mine since then, but you changed yours a little bit. And I mean, that's cool that you kind of ruminated a bit on what your list was.
My list definitely kind of changed. So my number 4 is actually Barbie. Like you kind of just said, you kind of had a thing about who would have thought that a film about plastic dolls would have created an existential crisis in its audience.
Yeah.
It didn't necessarily get me into any pit of despair where I was like looking into the abyss thinking of my
That's
inner
okay.
demons.
Yeah, I don't think that's what they wanted to.
But just, man, it was a film that I imagine, like, when people were, like, thinking of, like, how do we make a G.I. Joe movie? And with what we got with Channing Tatum, it could kind of drop the ball there. But with the Barbie, a very nuanced, unique, very character-driven film with smart dialogue that just kind of really just almost wig-snatched the interesting kind of gender, differences and, like, the expectations. It was a film that I think just really deconstructed kind of like the notion of the patriarchy and the matriarchy, and it allowed us to just kind of come to the common realization of just being ourselves and not being manipulated by stereotypes or like gender conformations that the masses want us to be, like the lumberjack, the bro dude, or like just the subservient beauty queen. It was a film that just reiterated, be yourself. And I feel like just the film, its theme just touched me in such a profound way that even at the end I couldn't help but just feeling like it was a 90-minute therapy session.
Yeah.
It was just so touching and beautiful. And I love Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. I think they're just a phenomenal pairing. And Noah Baumbach's writing, I just know that he is a director and a writer that just truly understands people at their core value. And I know Greta Gerwig as well does the same. And just them both coming from their unique perspectives to make this film, it was just an amazing experience.
My favorite thing of the behind-the-scenes stuff with this is that Greta Gerwig kind of forced Noah Baumbach into this. He was like, I didn't want to make this. And
I bet.
Greta was almost held him at gunpoint, basically, like, you got to make this with me. And I'm so glad she did that. So my number 4 is my second superhero movie of the year. Most people probably know what it is by now, and that is Across the Spider-Verse, the next Spider-Man movie in this animated series that they've started over at Sony. And what else can there be said that hasn't been said already? They keep pushing what can be possible with the computer in the animation world, but they stuck with the same style, but they just improved upon it.
True.
They also told a part 1 of a story, but they also told a contained story at the same time with Miles and his friends and trust and companionship, while also setting up a potential family dispute for the second movie. And to be able to do both of those while also telling a multiverse action movie with amazing set pieces and amazing soundtrack and all that stuff, it was truly a feast for the eyes and I'm sure it's a big feat to take up.
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, like, the animation, it's like no contest. It's something that just came out of nowhere and just is definitely now almost like an industry standard in a way. It's such a unique meshing of just 2D, 3D, and the cell shading. It's almost intoxicating to look at. It didn't make my top 10, but if I had an honorable mention list, it would definitely be on that, because even though, I never really, it's not that film that maybe I'm drawn to, but even seeing it, though, I couldn't help but just have a good time with it. It's just, it's action, it's humor, it's heart, and it's almost like it took what, made No Way Home so iconic, is, taking all the things we loved, Andrew Garfield, Tobey, Tom Holland. In this version, it's like they did their own No Way Home by bringing all of the universes together. And, shout out for, the Childish Gambino cameo, so that was dope. So I mean, yeah, it was a great time. I mean, it kind of did the thing though where it's just teases the third installment, but in a movie like this that makes so much money and brings so much money into
it'll be a great double feature in the future. I'll be watching it with my kids, be like, instead of having to wait 5 years for the third one or however long we have to wait.
The fact that you even just said you're gonna watch this movie with your kids, that's awesome. That makes that's meaningful, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't even know if I have I would, if I had a daughter, I would be really excited to even show her Barbie.
Oh, absolutely.
I can't wait for that day. So that's a great point, man. Yeah. Wow.
So hit us with your number 3. We are in the big 3 of our 3 favorites.
My number 3, actually, it's funny enough, my next 3 are these indie kind of just art house kind of weirdo films, clearly. But
that's totally fine.
Yeah. My number 3 is Beau's Afraid by Ari Aster. This is his 3rd film, but I think this is his most personal film. What I really loved about Beau's Afraid is just it's unlike anything you've ever seen before, and it reminds me of some of the genius of like a Charlie Kaufman script, like a Being John Malkovich, or an adaptation where its structure in itself doesn't follow a conventional first, second, and third act. This is literally a narrative that almost works as if you're following a red string in, you know, a white field. It just, you follow that red string until its end. And with Beau is Afraid, it was just a film that really touched me in a way because it is a film about a man who is afraid. And for me personally, I had never really seen a character with so much neurosis that actually felt like it related to me. In the film, Beau, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who does a wonderful job of not only just being kind of, you know, our leading man, but giving it his all to just really delve into that, like, neurosis. He deals with just considering the worst case scenario happening to him, such as an intruder coming in to kill him. You know, anything you can think of that's going to happen is going to happen to Beau. It's a very unique film in the way that it presents a man literally walking confused to his own execution in a way. And to me, I just thought, you know, from the cinematography, from the way that the film just subverts your expectations, and even to its very poignant ending where you're sitting, like literally, this is a film when I watched it, like everyone in the audience just like sat and didn't even like leave until the credits truly ended and the guys with that scoop the popcorn came in, because we were all just like stunned in silence of like, what the hell did we just watch? So this is definitely a film that I will revisit, and just, it's a film which just like is what I love to do, is like study and analyze film. So that's why I love a new film like Ari Aster, because he gives us so much to just actually just like think about, even if there really isn't such a very strong prevalent theme to just be taken from the end.
I probably should take time to watch that. I didn't get to see it when it came out in April, I think it was, but I'm definitely going to check that out.
Check it out. It's got notes of like David Lynch. It's got notes of just like bizarre, just like 70s thrillers. It's such a unique film.
I'm looking forward to it
Yes.
now that you talk about it, yeah. Because I've got some movies on the list that could be, I've got one that's definitely weird, and I think you said you've got some weird ones coming up as well.
That's what I'm saying, dude. So
Yep.
What's your number 3?
My 3 is definitely not weird, but definitely thrilling and thought-provoking and epic, and took over the world by storm along with Barbie, and that is Oppenheimer.
Boom.
And I think this was such an interesting case for me as a quote-unquote Christopher Nolan fan. I use that term lightly because some people are Christopher Nolan fans just because they like spectacle and they like kind of the style he has. Mm-hmm. I'm more of just a Chris Nolan fan because I find some of his movies interesting. I just like his movies.
He's
you know,
got a clear style that, like, when you're watching a Nolan film, you're like, yes, this is a Nolan film. It's very just clean. It's like he's a director who's truly confident in his vision.
Yeah, and it's a consistent vision. And this is definitely one of my favorite movies that he's ever made. And because he's focused on a character, and I felt like he's been able to stick the landing with the character. Granted, he's had a good base to build off of, which was a book and an existing factual character,
Right.
But a lot of us were worried as people who have watched a lot of Chris Nolan movies that, you know, this guy sometimes prioritizes spectacle over the character, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it was something to keep in mind. And so I was thoroughly surprised when I found something that both contained spectacle, but still very, very grounded in this character as you went through his life journey with his work, which also left you with some very thought-provoking questions at the end.
Definitely.
And just to shout out some other things that I like, cinematography, obviously amazing. Hoyt van Hoytema has been at the top of his game for pretty much a decade now.
I love Hoyt.
Yeah, he's just so amazing.
One of his earliest films is like Let the Right One In, which is like the original version of Let Me In, the vampiric kind of like love story, dude. Check that out.
Interesting.
Let the Right One In. Hoyt van Hoytema's cinematography, even from then, I just knew, I was like,
Hoyt, if you want to come talk to us, please let us know. I'd love to talk to you.
man, Hoyt, I mean, yeah. When you're not shooting Jordan Peele's new movie or Nolan's next film, yeah, talk to us.
Yeah. Other things, production design, they built up pretty much a whole town from scratch. Special effects team, I think they deserve a special shout out for this movie. The work they did, especially in the behind the scenes footage that I've seen, is truly mesmerizing on how they were able to make physical contraptions to show things that were happening in his mind.
Wow.
Visualizing basically nuclear physics, you know?
Almost like the synapses sparking almost.
Yes, and they were able to do that physically with like real life tricks and chemistry, and it was just so interesting.
Wow.
Score, Ludwig Göransson, also at the top of his game. Potentially not even at the top of his game. We haven't seen how high this guy can go yet.
Almost probably, he seems to me like the successor to John Williams. He's just kind of coming out the gate in the last couple of years, just making iconic hit after hit after hit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see what he does next, and I'll be looking forward to what Christopher Nolan does next, especially after this one. So that's my number 3.
Well, moving on to my number 2, you know, I've actually, since we last talked and shared our list, some things have changed, and actually, my number 2 is going to be a film that, you know, was in my consciousness for a while, but then when I finally saw it, I went, holy crap, this is a film. And that is Christopher Borgle's directorial debut, Dream Scenario, with Nick Cage.
Nick Cage movie, let's go.
I love, again, speaking, you know, back to like when I mentioned, you know, well, I love Nick Cage ever since I saw him as a kid. He's just such an interesting, versatile actor who can bring the range and the pain of a very troubled soul, but also the energy of the most wacky character ever.
He just does anything.
He does anything. And this is a film exactly that, where it can go anywhere. Dream Scenario is a film unlike anything I've ever seen before. It takes wild creative swings. It's got such a unique, interesting concept of, imagine if one man just was at the forefront of everyone's dreams, and how it's almost like this smart commentary on the actual hidden horrors of being a celebrity and the pressure of being in the spotlight.
Another Nick Cage movie where he's starring as Nick Cage, potentially?
Yes, and that's the beauty, because it's like Nick Cage is such an interesting actor to play duality. We've seen him do it in the film Adaptation by Charlie Kaufman, where he plays a very neurotic screenwriter and a very kind of confident screenwriter as well. And in this film, you see him at his lowest lows, and you see him kind of glow at his highest highs. What I love about this film, just to kind of make it, I think this is as if the movie American Beauty took acid. It is a film at its heart about a midlife crisis, and it is just such a fun ride. Christopher Borgle's writing, his editing, he edited this film himself.
That's impressive.
It's very impressive, because for a big film that got a theatrical release, there are some edits that maybe other editors that are working in the field would go, I don't know if I would do that. But it was so unique and new that there are moments where you're like, wow, that was a weird edit. But it adds to the weirdness of this film, and it has a lot of heart. It's got a lot of humor. At the end, it really piqued that helpless romantic in me. And I saw this with my girlfriend, and we both agreed. I don't normally buy as much physical media anymore, but I was like, I'm gonna buy this Blu-ray when that shit drops. So,
hey, if you buy it, let's watch it together so you can show me it.
Yes, it's definitely a film to share with your friends, and that's the beauty of film. And that's why for 2023, my number 2 was Dream Scenario. What about you, Kyle? What is your number 2?
My number 2 was a movie that I should have seen on Christmas Day, but for some weird reason, they didn't show it during Christmas week, even though it literally takes place during Christmas week. And that movie is a movie that touched me so well, but even though it was so simple, and that was Alexander Payne's The Holdovers. And it was just such a simple movie. There's no other way to put it. You've got this kid who gets left behind for Christmas because his stepdad and his mom basically don't want him around. You've got this teacher, absolutely hated by everybody. He gives out the worst grades. He's a hard ass. And the way these two people are able to find almost a common ground and realize there's more to each person. And that seems like a pretty basic story. And you can argue that it is, but the way that the movie handles it is just so beautiful. The way Paul Giamatti and I believe the kid's last name that plays the kid who stuck over, his last name is Sessa, I believe. They both do an amazing job, arguably Oscar worthy on both of their parts, to portray two very broken people. And the way I was able to connect with them, even though I haven't experienced anything like that, and empathize with people I am nothing like, and feel like I was also transported back to a time I wasn't a part of.
Dang, dude.
Which was, I believe, 70s, early 80s maybe.
Like a cozy feel to the film, right?
I literally wrote in my Letterboxd review that this movie feels like a warm hug. And I don't think there's a better way to describe it.
Wow.
Is even though it's not a happy hug, it's still a hug. It's almost like a comforting hug.
Wow.
And so I highly recommend that everyone checks it out. It's on Peacock, if whoever has Peacock is watching this, but also just on digital now. So definitely go check it out. And I think I'm going to rewatch it next Christmas because it's such a wonderful Christmas movie.
Wow.
So
Well, there you
now
go.
that I have that over, I think it's time we do our number one. And since you changed your list, I think we might have the same number one.
I think you know where I'm going with my number one, Kyle, because we watched this film actually together.
It was a rewatch for me,
And there you go.
but it was the first time for you.
And I'm definitely already thinking of when I'm going to rewatch this film because I loved it so much that in retrospect it beat out Dream Scenario.
And when I rewatched it, I loved it even more the second time.
Wow.
And so much so that it went from 3 to 1. So I think we're both in the same boat there.
I mean, I think we can just go ahead and say it. Our number one is
Poor
Poor
Things.
Things
Yeah.
by Yorgos Lanthimos. And I think I did not expect this film to become my favorite Yorgos Lanthimos film. I did not think anything was going to be able to really knock The Lobster off for me.
Yeah.
What I love about this film is, like, I feel now that with Yorgos's The Lobster, Killing of a Sacred Deer, and The Favorite, he's now earned such a reputation now and the budget to really make the films he wants to make. The films that I think that inspired him, of like Luis Buñuel's The Secret Charm of the Bourgeoisie. Like, he, at his heart, is an absurdist director, but not absurd in the way that he just paints things comically and lackadaisically. He is truly, I think, a legend of cinema and the way his mind works and what he just envisions for the look of his films. Using kind of, things like black and white, different lenses, just really, just kind of just a muscular filmmaker just going like, I'm going to use all these unique, like things and make such a unique, just absurdist but yet enjoyable and deeply thematic film that just really just makes you just like marvel at its grandeur,
I think some of the things that made it most interesting for me were the performances and how those actors were able to portray their characters that Yorgos beautifully wrote. It's based off of a book called the same thing, Poor Things. Maybe I should read it, but I don't know how much crazier it could get than this. And shout out to Emma Stone, portraying a character that changes so much throughout the movie, but yet portraying it as if the change is so gradual you don't even notice. And that's, props to the writer, props to Yorgos and the screenplay, but also props to Emma, because that is just
she
an incredibly
fully commits to the role. And again,
Yeah.
Disclaimer though, this is a film, it is our favorite, but it is a film, viewer discretion definitely advised for the film.
Oh, absolutely.
It has a lot of explicit sexuality, but there's something beautiful and like liberating in its like, its display of sex, because even as the film, the sex isn't kind of looked at in very like, like a sexy kind of way.
Yeah, and I think that's what people are talking about when they say there's too much sex scenes in movies. Those sex scenes are for the
It's like
purpose
the
of...
sex in this film is a vehicle for the exploration of what makes us human.
Yeah.
And this film is a deconstruction of, I think, the human condition. Emma Stone's character literally is transplanted with an infant's brain, her own infant's brain, into her head. And it allows us to just kind of accept that and realize that Emma Stone's character Bella is literally operating under that idea of what are we developed by our nature or our nurture. So every new thing that gets thrown at Bella, she gets to use that kind of developing mind that isn't kind of just tarnished and calloused by what someone in their 30s through life experiences might view something.
Absolutely.
But that infant mind in an adult body creates such a unique way for us to kind of almost wig snatch the way things are, such as the insecurity of like a controlling partner like Mark Ruffalo, or to the cynicism of a very jaded individual played by like Gerard Carmichael, to just understanding the capitalistic kind of corruption of what owning a brothel is, and just ultimately, this is like what I imagine Ari Aster's film Midsommar does, is that good for her film. But it's just a film where it's just like Bella, just in the end, you're just like wondering, how is this movie, like, you feel so like, oh, she's in such of these grimy like situations, but she comes out on top in the end in the most like liberating way, because she just develops into her own secure body, even with everything that happens to her in the Frankenstein shit. So.
And I think that was such an interesting way to put it, and beautiful way to put it, because there was almost two thematic things going on, and you touched on the first one, which was how Bella was able to look at things through a different lens because of her circumstances. But I think the second major thematic thing going on, you could argue there's like almost like a dozen things going on in that film thematically, but the two major ones was Bella and her development, and two, I think how people reacted to Bella and her circumstances, I think was the second major thematic thing in this film that I think really hit me, which was, how certain people acted around someone who was clearly vulnerable and inexperienced and didn't know what to do, and then how they reacted when she became more experienced and did know what to do, and the way certain people reacted to different circumstances, because there are many different circumstances in this movie and different characters in this movie with different motives. And it made it so interesting, because you can say, I've seen an example of something like this before. And
there were moments where I even felt like I related to some of the characters, and and to say like I related to a Yorgos Lanthimos character isn't the best thing you could probably say.
That's the point of film, in my opinion, is to a movie that can make you uncomfortable because you realize you see something in yourself. It's such a good thing. And there's almost been a discourse about this recently, in the fact that there's been some people, and they might be mad about certain things, but I think they're mad about the wrong thing here. Is they keep saying, whenever they hear a director say about a certain franchise that they're making a movie in, that, oh, this director said they want to, attack the patriarchy, and I just want to be entertained. As if that's all you're watching for film, is to simply be entertained, I want to challenge you to watch something that might actually challenge you, because I think that's something that makes us better. And to automatically assume anytime someone says, I want to challenge you, that that's an attack on you personally and that you don't want to watch that, I think that says a lot about you.
It does, and I think that's probably, something in the film speaks directly to that person's heart, and they just don't want to confront it yet. But we need to be confronted to be better people in life. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We sometimes, I think, differentiate confidence in being delusional sometimes, but to truly, or like rationalizing our bad decisions in the name of just, this is who I am. But there's like a moment even with like Mark Ruffalo's character where like he's being so kind of ignorant to like Bella's agency, where I went, ooh, it kind of wig snatched me in some of my own earlier relationships, where I felt like kind of this like needy, insecure guy who felt threatened by someone else's own development because I had lost sight of my own empathy for the fellow people. We like to sometimes think we are our own main characters, so we neglect the growth and development of others. So this film actually just was like, in a way, almost similar to Barbie. It challenged me, but it also just made me kind of glad that like I saw Mark Ruffalo as a villain in this film.
Yeah.
I saw people that Bella came across as being usury or just just kind of evil and cruel just for their own selfish gain, like Christopher Abbott's character, who plays this kind of king. But the cinematography as well, man. Like, I love Yorgos's usage of that wide lens.
That's one time I did like the use of a wide lens. There are some movies that came out this year that used wide lenses where I was like, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And this one went wider than any of those movies. Truly. And looked better than any of those movies. I'm gonna take a pop shot at some random movie I saw this year, which was Five Nights at Freddy's. Random, complete shift. I enjoyed myself, but there's just some times where they just switched to like a 21 millimeter randomly after using like a 50 or a 70, and it just looked weird. I was like, there was no reason to use this. But Yorgos is using like what, an 8 millimeter, 12 millimeter?
I think it might even be 6. I don't even know.
Something crazy, and it looked like it fit.
It did.
And that the fact he was able to pull that off was absolutely insane
and again,
to me.
it kind of goes back to that kind of absurdist thing I talked about where Yorgos is just having fun. He's feeling so confident in his way of presenting things. I felt like Poor Things in its art direction, this felt like kind of what like I think Tim Burton like should be kind of like doing, you know, these like grandiose kind of crazy like future like pointed Baroque kind of like settings, and it just felt so I don't know, in a way like I can't help but think like a director like Yorgos to me is like a modern day Kubrick in a way. He's just so unique in his vision, and it's so unapologetic in the way he presents things. I could see some filmic grammar from Kubrick, not only from like the brothel scene where it almost like echoed 2001, that white room where there's like illumination where Emma Stone's standing, kind of even Clockwork Orange. I just felt like if your film can make me kind of connect you to Stanley Kubrick, you're definitely in my top one.
Yeah.
So like if I left feeling like, holy crap, this is like, if Kubrick was alive today, he would have sat his bearded self down as it finished and gone. And I can help but do the same. It's just a masterwork, and I think this is Yorgos's magnum opus thus far.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the Oscar nominations come out in like 2 weeks or so. I'm really hoping this makes it in almost every single category, because I think it does deserve to be in almost every single category.
Dude, yeah.
And I hope it makes as much money in the world as it possibly can, because every person that greenlit this, worked on this, and trusted in this movie deserves everything coming their way.
I'll just say it's 2024, and I know Poor Things is already a film I want to see again to start off my year, so that's why it's number one for me.
Yeah, and that's why it's also number one for me. It's all the reasons I talked about, all the reasons you talked about, and I'm glad we actually came to a consensus on our number one, because I think that ends the video really nicely.
Done.
Those are our favorite movies from 2023. We didn't see everything. I missed a few of yours. You missed a few of mine. We missed a few that we both might have included in the top 10 if we saw them, but that's life. So if you don't like that we didn't watch the movies, too bad. Maybe we'll watch them, maybe we won't.
Yeah, because to be honest, he probably didn't see him either.
Yeah, we're not those people on Letterboxd that watch at least a movie a day. We actually have stuff going on in our lives,
you can't possibly. I mean, that's why honestly I feel like movies need to go back to being like, I love it if it's a good 2 hours, okay, but I'm telling you, we got to go back to the golden age of the tight 90. I don't know, there's too much fluff in film, and you know, even though like I don't know.
There was Killers of the Flower Moon. I think it deserved to be whatever it was, 230 minutes or something.
But I don't know, man. If you made that 90, I would have still been happy.
Yeah, it's something that definitely can be looked towards. And there's some movies that have been under 2 hours recently, but just haven't hit the mark for me.
But with that being said, thank you guys for watching our top 10 of 2023. We'll probably have some more videos on the horizon for you guys.
With that being said, I think we're done here. And I think we will do a cool outro with the sunglasses.
Boom. Thank you guys for watching. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, and don't be too pretentious.
Don't be pretentious.
Yeah. Peace.
Boom.